Clary.
Left to Clary. This is where Kieran freezes. He freezes up.
He gets a little nervous.
He gets a little nerve. No, I don't have anything useful here. I'm playing the screen, so I apologize. Boop. Here we go. Oh, there's people coming out. We'll give them a few more minutes.
Sweet.
I'm going to sniff these wines out of them. Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Chris has got a map of the Mosel on hand.
Oh, yeah.
I have a map of the Mosel.
She's taking her job. Oh my god, this smells so delightful. She's taking her job very seriously.
I'm taking bets on who will win.
Oh no.
She's got a phone open to like this betting site. She's got odds.
Will Kieran and I get a cut if we're the winner?
Yeah, right.
Sweet.
Well, I've gone to capitals, but that's gonna be sorry. I didn't mean to yell at everyone. Okay, well, let's get started because everyone's talking. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wine Coach at Home. My name's Nick. I am here to talk Riesling, German Riesling to be precise. This is our Riesling sessions over the years are renowned to be the least successful of our wine coaches.
Why are some so?
I don't know. You know what? There's keys. I do Nebbiolo, Barolo, I do Burgundy. Hundreds of people want to do it.
Chardonnay.
Your Chardonnay, yes. Rosé. The minute you put Riesling in the title, it's like, but we're here to dispel the myths and the shame of drinking Riesling. As you can see, the person beside me, Krista Oben. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is so strange to actually like talk to someone because you've got to like face camera. But Krista's here to be the judge of this competition between dry and off-dry Mosel Riesling, which is as nerdy as it sounds. But you said you're on the fence for this.
I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence of believing that there's a place in this world for both styles of wine, and that in a few years we're just going to be drinking weird like kiwi grapes from the Mosel, anyways. So let's explore these two.
Absolutely.
Historical styles of wine.
Absolutely. And to argue both sides of this debate, we've got people who I know and love, who know Riesling and who know Germany inside and out. Kim Polak, you are representing dry Riesling today. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Very happy to be here and talk about the future of the Mosel, dry Riesling.
I know. I like Kieran and Kim are two of the most, like, when I talk about Riesling to them, they're the two of the most excited people who get the most excited about German wine. And I'm so excited I get to do this because I barely know anything. And I feel that you two are definitely going to be carrying this conversation. And on the side of off dry, Kieran Coyne, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
This is, I think all of us have done Wine Coach numerous times. I'm very excited I was just saying before, the last time we were all together was for the wine quiz in April.
Yeah.
The great showdown.
The olden days.
The olden days, where there was 9 people on the screen, and that was kind of like fun and exciting. Now, not so much.
Before we get started, should we
Yes.
make each of them do an elevator pitch for the style of Riesling that they are representing?
I know I got you to host for a reason. Okay, Kim, elevator pitch. Why should we drink dry Riesling from Germany?
Great question. Dry Rieslings represent wines that are a little less manipulated. They require less additives to create the style. And because of that, they show you the truest expressions of place in Germany. So if you care about terroir, you should drink dry ones.
Ooh, very compelling argument. I forgot about manipulation. I forgot about how much you have to do to keep that that wine sweet. Kieran, what's your pitch? Tell me.
Who cares about manipulation when you're talking about off-dry Riesling? You're talking about old school Riesling, tradition. We're talking about some of the oldest estates in the Mosel. We're talking about captivating the balance of sugar and acidity and how that affects just the aging of wine. And I honestly, it's going to be an interesting battle.
Also delicious. It's going to be a delicious battle. As much as like last week we did Burgundy and that was fun and it was like a little bit more intellectual. I don't know. I'm excited because there's always a bit of pleasure when you drink German Riesling, and there's always an element of like delight. And it always feels special and not like in an annoying way, in a like fun way. So I'm excited to sort of see how this plays out. To be open and honest to the audience, I don't like dry German Rieslings. I find nothing compelling about them at all, but I am going to try to be as unbiased as possible. I'm going to do what a professional somm should do and approach each wine on their merits and not on their personal preference. And I'm excited to be, change. I'm excited to have my mind change. And in the chat, if you have any questions, please yell them out. If you have anything you want to yell, like the way I yelled "Hi everyone" because I forgot my caps locks were on, I apologize. But there'll be heaps of questions. Feel free to ask, and we'll just start talking. Should we taste some wine?
We should start drinking Riesling.
Yeah, let's drink it. Wine number 1, Hofgut Falkenstein. Is that right? Yes, Hofgut Falkenstein. This is my first memory. Yeah. Number 1.
So this is one of the off-dry wines.
Off-dry, correct.
So enjoy every sip, friends.
Yeah. First time I drank this was with Kieran. I'm pretty sure he brought a bottle back from Germany. He showed me this and I was like, oh my God.
It's that bottle.
Sorry? Not this bottle. Was it this bottle? Anyway. And I finally got my hands on it and I've got a little bit left in the shop and I am so excited because this is $57 a bottle. And in the scheme of it is the cheapest Riesling, which isn't bad, but it packs a lot for its punch. So Kieran, tell me, what makes this wine so, have you been here? Did you visit these guys?
Yeah, funny thing is me and Kim actually went to this place together. Basically, we were holding hands as we walked in, like we were just so happy to be there, skipping in the driveway. And it's an amazing estate. Like the estate is on the label, and it's father son that do the winemaking and the like wine production and the exporting. This is like a super small operation. Yeah, beautiful. And it's lower part of the Mosel. So it's around the corner from like Egon Müller and Peter Lauer and other like iconic like dry styles are not super popular in that area. It's more of the off-dry style. Yeah. They're a little confusing because the wines are all bottled and then sold as like AP numbers, and like they have like cute little names that go with all of them, but they have like so many wines that you kind of need to know the AP numbers to know what you're getting. So this is the Niedermänniger Herrenberg Spätlese fine herbs. The Spätlese being like the late harvest grapes, and they could probably have like maybe turning towards a tiny bit of botrytis, or like not quite, but maybe they could in some like hotter humid vintages or like humid harvests. But yeah, they're super direct. Hey, they're like really fresh, even though they have like a little bit of like balancing sweetness. They're quite bracing and like high, like kind of like food friendly in a way. Like they're very like punchy and like youthful for sure. Like this is 2019, right? So it's just like pretty, hasn't been long in the bottle. So it's like, yeah, they're all about like energy and freshness, and like even with the balancing sweetness, they're like, yeah, they're pretty feisty wines.
Yeah, that wine is high acid. Often, especially in Riesling, when you want to, here's my tip, when you want to like perceive acid, you got to like focus on it and you got to think about it, because the sweetness is often what you're brain will automatically start to perceive. But if you focus on the acidity, you will like have this like explosion of acid. It is such a like, I don't know, powerfully zippy wine. It's
like crab apples. Like it's always like those like super tart apple flavors.
All of our teeth are gonna fall out at the end of this tasting. Am I right?
Yeah. You're gonna brush your teeth and they're just gonna go into the sink.
This is like a secret ad for like Sensodyne toothpaste.
Sensodyne, yeah. Sponsored.
No, I love these wines. I know I'm not supposed to admit that tonight, but these wines are electric in their acidity. They're delicious. But one of the things I think about the sweeter styles, like it's delicious with that sweetness. But if you didn't have that there, then you would expose that just incredible acid and a little bit undrinkable without that sugar. So I don't know, something I always think about when I'm drinking a sweeter wine is the sweeter wine hiding something? In this case, no, it's obviously intentional, but sugar hides faults.
Yeah, if we've learned anything from modern winemaking is that, yeah, adding sweetness to wine, and we see it with like really cheap whites and reds, that we often see it like places like the Wine Rack. Like you add a bit more sugar, your brain, like I said before, that's what your brain focuses on, and you kind of smooths everything and covers everything over like, I don't know what the analogy is, but
People think it's smooth.
yeah, I just want a smooth wine.
Yeah,
nothing sweet, just smooth. I was like, well, it is sweet. Yeah, this is so delightful. Krista, what do you think of this wine? Have you got any feelings?
I think one of the things I love about this style of wine is the extreme, that electric acidity, but also this is only 9% alcohol, which is so refreshing. This is a real like afternoon wine on a perfect sunny day, or a beautiful like before dinner wine that won't get you too jazzed up that you can't drink another bottle of something later. It's really just like that delicacy combined with the power of the acidity is really something special.
This is a good point that just sort of come up, and then I mean we all can comment when we talk. How do you approach aging German Riesling or like sweeter wines? Like, is it the same in your minds, the same way you would age a drier wine or another white wine? I mean, when we talk about aging white wine, it's really Rieslings, sweet wines, and like Chardonnays that we really talk about. So I'm super curious as to what your thoughts are. Kieran.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, like when you get the chance to drink like Riesling 20 years old, like, you know, maybe older, they're amazingly like still fresh. Like they're still somewhat like, they're not cloying and like sweet and viscous at all, but they're still very much like alive. And you're like, how is this 25 years old? Like it tastes like it's been bottled like and drank within like a year. But because the acid is so high, and it just kind of, the evolution of the acid and the residual sugar, they just kind of mellow each other out. So you still kind of have like almost like a dry tasting Riesling at like 20 years old. Like they're not as sweet as the wines we'll be tasting in this lineup, but they're like more kind of caramelized and like, but there's a little bit of like a sort of spice profile as well. That's like not in these wines so much, but more like, you know, saffron, like curry powder, that kind of like interesting kind of spice that you kind of get, just a sort of evolution of like the acids and the sugars in these wines. So they're really crazy. If you can wait, yeah, it's like we'll all be like old and gray when those wines are like 20.
Kieran, do you have any old Riesling in your cellar that you're aging?
I have a bottle of 2003, which is kind of getting there, but like on like food menus in Germany, like there's 1985s and like 1990s and 80s. Sometimes there's like late 70s. Like we saw a couple where you're just like, and it's just like, oh yeah, we've got like one of those that we are happy to sell you with lunch. Like we're just like happy to have these and like share them around. So they obviously got like plenty, and you're just like, whoa, what? We drank some like 1985, which was, or 1990, which was like actually, yeah, it was birth year wine, right? Yeah, and it was just like wow, it's like the sort of caramel, buttery kind of like still fresh, but like having it with like rich, fatty Sunday lunch, like, and it was just like, yeah, we were still good to like keep going all night. Like they weren't strong and overpowering in any way, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to aging and Riesling, like the sweet ones, I will 100% admit, I think that they age for longer. And they become so interesting when they age, but I think both dry and sweet kind of show you a little bit more of that herbaceous side of Riesling, which you don't always get in its youth. For me, especially depending on the soil, there are so many herbs and there's so much like more like root vegetables sometime, and so many different elements that like people don't think about when you think about that like lime fruit profile that everyone gives to Riesling. There is so much kind of depth there that you get if you age either of them. I think actually it was Florian Lauer, when we met with him, he was saying that for dry styles, like 7 years, anytime after 7 years is a really good time to drink them. But the sweet ones, I feel like my favorites of the sweet that we had were much older than that, like 20 years plus.
Krista, do you have any you've been to Germany, right?
I have many times, and I keep buying Riesling, and I mean to age it, and then I never do because I drink it immediately when I get thirsty. But certainly when given the chance, like when I see an old wine list that's stacked with incredible older Rieslings, it's such a joy to do a little dive into that.
Is it expensive? So, for example, if anyone's in Germany, is it expensive to drink that old stuff?
It's literally like the same price as like current release, like wine. It's crazy.
Especially the JB Becker.
Euros. Sorry, Kim.
Sorry, especially the JB Becker wines, because they hold those back before releasing them specifically for restaurants, so they can offer something incredibly affordable, but that gives you a greater perspective on the grape. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. No, I love that comment about like the herbal nuances and the sort of salty mineral tones like that come out a bit more when you age. Yeah, any reduction that may be in like any of these like younger GG styles is gone or like kind of resolved, and you're left with a bit more than not aging it.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like that herbaceous side of Riesling a little bit easier, like in Austria, like Austrian Rieslings, especially from the Wachau, that has that like low soil, that has that like herbaceous vegetal kind of herbal thing. I mean, it's super compelling. I'm excited. Okay, let's do it. Simon had a question about Feinberg. Fine herb, what does it mean? German wine labelings are often some of the most confusing, but also some of the most clearest things you'll ever do. I don't know. This is like, there's like, what they love to do is like layer wine lore and terminologies on top of each other and just keep building this beautiful stack of confusion. I don't know. I can't recall. Fine herbs like.
I think it's 12 to 18 grams, but it could be.
I think there is a legal definition. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it is kind of like the lightest wine, right? Lightest? Is that description?
Like delicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the emotion the word is supposed to invoke, is like, a lighter, easier drinking, bit of sweetness, a bit of not, a little just go crazy. That was what was that one? No, that's not. Oh, that is fine. Yeah. But again, I would need about 4.5 hours to explain German wine labels.
Nick, I'm like playing a board game.
Yeah.
Right? You like, if you just start playing, you're like, this is boring and I don't understand any of it. But if you read the instruction manual, it's kind of like, oh, this could be a fun time. Yeah,
absolutely. It would be fun, especially over like a magnum of fine herb, but I haven't either. But needless to say, look, this is my sort of tip that I use when I approach buying German wine. I definitely first look at the alcohol level, because I think that's very much indicative of sweetness. If that's something that you're using to define, like to have a conversation, like what you're using to decide if sweetness and dryness is kind of where you're making a decision, alcohol level, regardless of what's said, can be mostly like indicative of if it's dry or off dry. I would say anything above 12 is probably erring on the drier side, and anything with a single digit is definitely on the sweeter style. Am I
think
leading
that's
anyone
fair,
astray by
yeah.
saying that? Yeah. So
Yeah, I think one of the reasons German wine is so affordable here and internationally is the confusion around the labeling. Like there's just so many extreme rules and so many words to know, like Auslese and Feinherb and stuff like that. You know, like what does Spätlese mean? You know, some people know, but a normal person just in a shop or in a restaurant might not know, and that's I think maybe why it's so confusing, but why it has a lot of hot value.
mm-hmm. And you get your money's worth in Germany. Like they're not, if it's bad German wine, it's going to be cheap German wine. So like if you want a good bottle of wine, just like pay something over $20 for it. I'm sure you're not going to get hoodwinked, but gone are the days for those who are listening who understand this reference. The Blue Nun days, they're far away. Unless you're shopping in a supermarket, if you're in a wine shop or in a restaurant in Germany or anywhere around the world, you're not going to get like swill. You're not going to get terrible wine. I think you're going to have something you really like, and use alcohol, like use the alcohol level as a guide, because that's pretty much on every label around the world, and you'll get a good off dry kind of vibe. I don't know. Does anyone else have any like wine buying tips to share when we talk about German wine?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I would just maybe explore them in different countries too, because I feel like different markets favor different styles. And so when we can travel again, it's really fun because I think like locally in Germany, they consume so much of the drier wines, they're exporting more of the sweeter ones. And so we get a misrepresentation of like the styles that they actually enjoy that they're making. And so it's really fun if you're able to see like different wines that different regions appreciate and support. That's kind of a fun thing.
And if you start getting like a little bit more excited about German wines, then I think you can start to explore like the larger regions, like the Mosel and the Pfalz or Rheingau or Rheinhessen, and they have their own characters and their own sort of traditions. And you can that's how I kind of approached it. I like drinking sweeter wines. And if you didn't maybe not know this, but like really Toronto and maybe Canada are the only real country in the world that doesn't like Riesling. Everywhere else in the world loves drinking Riesling. I've never, since moving to Canada, I've never had so much hard time talking about Riesling without people going, "Oh no,
it's too sweet."
I don't know. I don't know where I am.
I want sugar.
Yeah. Okay. One number 2. Kim, you're up.
All right.
Simon Lorenstein, Scheifer Terrassen. I'm going to say that right, and you're going to say that. So you're going to say it. I know you're going to say it. And you're going to say it like beautifully, and it's just going to like a BMW.
Yeah, it's the Schiefe Terrassen.
There you go, Schiefe Terrassen.
Yeah. One of the tricks about pronouncing those German things is if you see an I and an E together, you pronounce the second letter. So if it's I-E, then you pronounce E, and if it's E-I, you pronounce I.
We learn something every day. I feel like Chris already knew that.
Only when you're around Kim.
Yeah. Chris already speaks German. Yeah, I speak one language. It's Australian, and that's what I'm going to go by. Okay, let's taste this one. The color is kind of fun. Oh, it's kind of fragrant. I kind of like.
Very golden.
Is that usual? No. What are we seeing with this?
You always get a little bit more color, kind of an indicator of a few different possibilities. Sometimes there can be a little bit of botrytis that oxidizes the wine a little bit and gives you a bit more color. But sometimes, and I think in this case, we're looking at just a little bit of oak aging. Because that micro oxidation that you get through the barrels definitely kind of darkens the colors of the wine as well. I mean, it looks more like Chardonnay, right? This is kind of what you would expect from that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to know that color and sweetness don't often correlate. Like often we see, dessert wines, Sauternes, Turquoise have this beautiful sweet golden color. This also has a beautiful golden color, but she's not sweet. I don't know. What's everyone's thoughts and impressions? Krista, tell me, what's your impression of this wine?
It's fun to drink a dry Riesling. Like, it has so much, dirty word minerality, but also just this like herbaceousness and savoriness that you don't find in a sweet Riesling. I feel like it's just more winey and less Riesling-like. Could make a case for dry Riesling. Who knows?
Yeah, this is pretty neat. I don't know if anyone else got like real. It like there was quite buoyant back pouch. It was kind of full of gas, and I think there's a lot of energy in this wine. Kira, what's your feelings and thoughts and impressions?
It's definitely like a really distinct style. Like, I personally like it, but I don't know if it's for everyone. In this kind of savory herbaceousness, but it's also like quite bitter and like a tiny bit oily. It's not. It's a really like interesting style. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around it after the first few sips, but it's quite like a style. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very specific. And I think they're trying to show you like what the potential of drier styles are and like kind of what their use is. It is more bitter. It does have a bit of that oiliness. But like Krista said, it kind of highlights different parts of the Riesling grape. Incredibly food friendly here, but for different dishes than you would pair the sweeter styles with. For me, if you're looking at something, I don't know, there's some meat dishes that I think would pair really well with this. And for people that don't like red wine or can't drink it for whatever reason, I think dry Rieslings have the power to replace a lot of reds in pairings.
Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. I'm not mad at that. I could definitely explore it and have a lot of excitement. Obviously, schnitzel.
Yeah, if you were doing like a celebration of root vegetables dinner,
no,
this would be on your right?
Wouldn't
You guys wouldn't want to come join me, and we would just tuck into different squash and radish and turnips. You guys wouldn't want to just sign up for. You'd probably.
What about goose or like duck even? There's something there with like a game bird, I think, because of that, like the uniqueness of the character and the flavors that would highlight, what you're eating in a different way.
Yeah, I'm not mad at this. The other thing is that, like, in Alsace, there's this strong tradition of dry Riesling. We see less Alsatian Riesling than we do German Riesling, which boggles my mind. But considering how strong the French sort of wine market is in Toronto, but this is kind of reminiscent of Alsace. I do struggle to understand the why of this wine, like what their vision was, and I think Kim, you obviously helped elucidate that. But I don't know, something about this wine.
I don't know. I think it has a little bit to do with like where they are in the Mosel as well. Like Kim and Lowenstein are in in Mosel. So this is the opposite end where we just were, kind of in the Saar-Ruhr area.
So we were here before in like around Konz for the Hofgut Falkenstein. And we're up here, aren't we?
Yeah, so like near Vinnigan.
Yeah.
Well, Vinnigan.
Yeah, so right at the top there. And so that's like one of the hottest areas. Most of the grapes here like rely on being on those like incredibly steep terraces. And so they get like a lot of sun exposure. And so because of that, I feel like this is one of the areas that gravitates towards drier styles more than sweet ones, because the grapes naturally get more ripeness. And so they need less sugar to balance that acid, because the acid is more like integrated because of the ripeness of the grapes.
That's so cool.
This seems to have a lot of kind of like production stuff, like whether it's barrel or lees. Can you tell us more about what they do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how long it's in oak. I know that it is in oak, kind of with the lees not separated. They don't like to do a lot of manipulation here. One of the reasons that they work specifically kind of with drier styles as a winery is because they wanted to separate themselves from the classic traditional approach to Riesling, and because they really didn't want to use sulfur on the wines. and they wanted to let the wines show themselves naturally. And so they're one of the wineries that, like, sometimes different cuvées will be a little bit sweeter or drier depending on the vintage, because they let them ferment as long as possible without stopping it in any particular spot. So they let them really just show you what the year was like.
Kate asks in the chat, is there lees contact on this wine? I mean, there is a textural element, I'm not gonna lie.
There very likely is. It has that like stickiness. And that's something I haven't read specifically about them doing that, but I know their neighbors at Nebel, Weingut Nebel, do a lot of lees contact to kind of, again, because they're only working with dry styles because of where they are. They like to use that lees to create the additional texture to kind of temper the acidity in Riesling, because you don't want it to kind of shoot through your mouth aggressively. You want it to kind of get caught and linger and give you a little bit of a longer finish. And so lees is one of those things that add that texture.
I mean, the acid isn't as high as the first one, then obviously. And I see it. It's a balancing game. Did either of you visit?
No, we didn't.
Wallenstein?
We missed our flight, and
we missed the flight because of a snowstorm, and so we
Millennials. God.
No. Our flight was like stuck on the tarmac for like 3 hours, and we missed our connection. It was great because like Nate did like was hoping for a good night, and he got like a terrible sleep on like Iceland airport floor.
Can you take a photo at least? We can use it against sweet Nate Morel.
I'll post it after this.
Sleeping on an airport floor.
They basically decided in Iceland airport to start putting up the Christmas tree and like all the decorations like right above where Nate was trying to sleep, with like a forklift truck that had a beep when it went up and down. And it was just
this was pre-COVID, by the way. This was 2019. You did this trip, just as a reference point.
But we did ask a lot of producers about malolactic fermentation and like if their Rieslings went through like on the trip, because I was kind of still learning about that and I just wanted to ask, like, and a lot of them were like, no, they don't go through. Some do.
A lot of times I think the acidity is too high. Like if the acidity is too high, it kind of kills like the things that cause malolactic fermentation. And so the wines are still stable, but they don't need to go through it.
As much as I prefer wine number one than wine number two, wine number two feels like a puzzle that I want to like solve. And I'm kind of like, it is more intriguing than the first one. The first one had it painted a very beautiful, pretty picture, and it's fine herb for a reason, I guess. But this, as much as it is like dry and maybe not the style I want to drink, I would say that I do want to try and figure this wine out, and I think that's a positive. You know, I enjoy drinking it. I just trying to like figure out what to do.
Get it. Yeah.
I like this style a little bit warmer when I drink them as well, whereas I'll have like the sweeter Rieslings like really like cold, basically straight from the fridge sometimes. I think that the dry styles benefit from being a little bit warmer, kind of drink them at the same temperature I would drink like white Burgundy at, because you just get more of that character and complexity.
I'm curious, after the first lineup, what everyone thinks, what everyone's feelings are. So if you're near keyboard, tell me if you prefer wine number one or two before we get into the real heavy hitters, which not that the first two aren't heavy hitters, but I think 3 and 4 are going to have a lot to say. One is better than 2. Apples and a holly. Come on, commit. You got to commit.
Holly.
Can't choose. Mix them together. Actually, that's not the worst idea I'd ever think. I know it sounds terrible, but like.
Nick, don't you dare.
I did it.
That's a crime.
Yeah, not yet.
I mean, no, it didn't work, but it's still interesting.
Winemakers, you can keep your jobs.
But there's the other thing we haven't mentioned it, but like there's this one, you know, when we often used to classically talk about Riesling, we would use petrol notes and gasoline and plasticky kind of notes to describe it. But I think there's a good point that like neither of these wines really exhibited any of that. And, you know, in modern Riesling winemakers believe that, you know, that's a fault. Is it TDN? I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, a fault that comes from farming and overcropping
Yeah,
the vine leaves.
yeah, and those petrol-y, plasticky, gasoline-y notes. It comes from the Riesling being exposed to too much UV light. So when you don't cover the grape bunches with leaves, it produces this chemical as a kind of sunscreen, which kind of exhibits in the wine. So what used to be thought, especially in Australia as well, used to be thought as this like compelling sort of notes, modern winemaking kind of, especially in Riesling, only in Riesling, really aren't really trying to create those flavors anymore because they're managing the grapes much, much better. So in case you're wondering, you might see it in older styles or in more traditional sort of winemaking, but mostly it's slowly getting phased out in winemaking, and even in like Australia where it's like classic in the Clare and the Eden Valley to have like plastic, like gasoline notes. That's kind of what they were defined by. You just see it disappearing, and we're also seeing a bit of residual sugar coming into their wine now, which I am all for balance. Because Riesling at the end of the day is just a balancing game. It's just about, more so than I think any other wine, it's that balance is so much more visible, from acid to sugar to alcohol to whatever you're trying to do. Oh, okay. Wine number 3. I love these wines. I dedicated a whole wine coach to it last in 20.
Wow, what are we on? We're on the JJ Prum.
JJ Prum. Mahalo, who was in our JJ Prum, he's the export director of JJ Prum. In our wine coach, he sent me a message on Instagram, very excited by what we're doing tonight. So, it's kind of fun. But if anyone was there in that tasting, we were tasting 2018's. We were tasting the Spätlese, whereas tonight we are tasting Cabernets. Another crazy German wine term that you'll often see, which refers to a cupboard. Does it refer to a cupboard? It does, doesn't it? It's Cabernet is literally a cupboard.
It's the wine that you put in the cupboard for everyone to see that you got it.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I always thought it was the first one you grab. It's the one that's first ready. It's the one that's in the cupboard. It's ready to go.
Yeah.
And the vineyard is Wellner Sonnenher, which I mean is considered their like premier vineyard. I think like
a Grand Cru vineyard.
Yeah, their top like the vineyard they care the most about.
Yeah.
That's famous Sonnenher, which refers to the sundial, which is
that's the vineyard on the left hand side of the label.
This one,
yeah.
This hill.
But that's
Oh, I thought it was San Francisco. Oh, I see now. This isn't the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's not.
Kira-chan, tell me about this wine.
Pull up the map.
Wait, chef.
Thank you. I think there's. Anyway, you can see on the map where we are. We're in the purple, and we're right in the middle. Velen, there's Vernon and Bernkastelers down the river. It's like one of those situations where it's like all a winemaker's dream, like which we all read on like back labels and here in like wine tastings, like perfect soil, perfect direction towards the sun, perfect drainage. Vines are really old. Some of them are ungrafted on their own original rootstock. The wines are hand harvested and brought in to just across from the the cellar. It's wild yeast fermentation. It's a bit of fine lees contact. There's 9 months, and there's bottling, low sulfur bottling, and it's like a family recipe about how they do that no one knows. And they've been making wine for 200 years in the family. There's been vines on the hill from them since like the Roman times. There's been a Prum sundial since the early 1800s. You're just like so much history, so much like it's like a pinnacle of wine culture. In terms of
production, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's super gassy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It smells like you haven't lit the pilot light on your like stove. Which I think basically we're drinking this wine like in its period of like being shut down, which is really sad.
That's an interesting idea. Okay, so which I love the idea of.
You pouched these up like a couple of days ago, right? So if there was any like kind of like little reduction, it would just blow off. But this quite like interfering.
What is this shutdown window? Because like in Burgundy, we talk about wine, especially reds shutting down, I guess, where they have this like moment in their infancy where they're like exciting and juicy and fresh, and then they shut down for, I don't know what, 70, 80 years, I don't know, whatever nonsense these Burgundy drinkers tell you, and then they're magically great again.
Well, I guess for me, I don't drink shutdown wines very often, right? But like, you know, like, we don't all like come across wines that just aren't really hitting the spot that often. But
correct.
I guess this is it, and I don't know the science. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about that. But
I have no science at all. Clearly,
I know that they're studying it in Germany right now because it's a thing that happens that people just don't have a great grasp on. But I think it probably has something to do with acidity and like just the natural protective qualities of that. Just like, I don't know, maybe making them a little bit tough for a while. But when they come back, they're so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Going through a difficult like teen phase where it really doesn't want to talk
totally insecure. It's like put my dinner outside my bedroom door and go leave me alone. Also, can borrow your car. Yeah,
I mean, but at the same time, as much as this maybe is a little shut down, I'm still getting lots of cool things from this. Like, yeah, it's kind of delightful.
One of the striking signatures of the JJ Prune wines is they had this like prickly acidity, which is almost like fizzy or bubbly, like it's like a tickles your tongue kind of thing. And it's just, that's like something that you kind of get all the time when you freshly pull the cork and you're like, whoa, this is like singing. It's like actually like buzzing when you taste them.
Mm.
Do you think that's from a thing that they do as like a winery, or do you think it's from their terroir? What is that prickliness from?
It's okay. I don't think it's CO2, like a winemaking thing, but something about the way that they do fine lees and natural yeast. And there's actually like Katerina Prune does like a whole podcast on this, like the which is really, really fascinating. Yeah.
Is it Prunecast? No, what's it? What's the podcast?
Yeah, it's Prunecast. It's Prune.
Is it really?
No, I'll drink to that, and it's like in the archives. But yeah,
I have this one memory of Katerina Prune. There's like a YouTube video of her, and she's being interviewed. It's really amazing. Telling someone about her wine, but in the back, her like infant child is like crying, just woken up from a nap. So midway through the interview, this child, and she doesn't blink an eyelid. She just keeps on talking.
You're professional.
And the interviewer's like, you okay? And she's like, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm like, that is what I want to see.
Yeah.
I developed a lot of respect for that woman the minute she did that. And that means nothing other than that, like, you know, just professionalism. I loved it. There's something about this wine, I think, that it does better than the two other wines we've tasted before, is that like on the palate, it is smooth in a way that's just like balances acidity, sweetness, but also flavor and power that I don't think the other two's really had. Like the pleasure of drinking this wine that isn't coming just from the sweetness, but is coming from like how like perfectly it's made. It's just like this beautiful, well-engineered product. And I don't like talking about wine as something that's engineered, or, you know, we often like to fantasize it as like it's this natural kind of like beautiful juice that just springs from the plant. But this is like engineered to
German engineering.
Yeah. I mean, they've definitely like perfected how they're making their wines there. It's like, it's impossible to argue against like the incredible balance that they've gotten there. And I love these. I wish they were a bit more accessible in their youth for the price that they are. I just wish that, I don't know, for me, like I can taste the sulfur in it because you need it to keep that sweet style. And I think when that blows off, when that integrates into the wine, there's so much to these. But they're ones that, I mean, even I think the winery, like Katerina only drinks them. I think I was reading it, like only her and her dad like to drink them after 20 years. And we don't have that opportunity, right?
I mean, we do, but we're yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, and look, that's kind of like, if there's another region that, I mean, I guess Barolo does the same, and Burgundy, but like more often than not, we talk about German Riesling as like, oh, it's great after 20 years, and like we all know what I think about that. But I would also say that like you have a better chance of getting old Riesling from Germany than you have getting old Burgundy from Burgundy or old Barolo from Piedmont. Like they have cellars full of it to like romanticize it, but you know, if you want to taste it, I think if you want to explore old Riesling and old German Riesling, I think there's a good chance. I think it's an achievable thing. I feel like I could just go to Germany, like, you know, fly into Munich, and probably at the airport, I could probably get 30-year-old wine with my Marie Schnitzel.
A few of the airports in Germany do have incredible wine stores.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a treasure.
Yeah, you don't even have to go that far. I was like, I work a few ships at Barbarians now, and they have back to 1976 Riesling.
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah.
And this is a hot tip for anyone, but you will always get good value drinking white wine at a steakhouse. Because if they've got a deep cellar, you will get your money. You will not be ripped off. You will get it at a bargain. So do it, please.
Really great with the shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah, all apps. No, the wine's got some nice like peachy fruit going on. There's some nice like
peachy
melon. Yeah.
Michael asks, what gives them the bubbly vibes again?
That's a good question, Michael. I just wasn't able to answer it. I don't know for sure. But it does have this kind of like thing that no one else has. It's like this prickly, tingly acid.
I mean, you see it in other wines. It's kind of not like bubbles. Yeah. It's kind of like the way Zeno kind of has a little spritz. It's not. No, not even in that way. I don't think it's carbonated either. I don't know. It's just there's a lot in it in the wine. Well, I guess a lot of people describe Riesling as like delicate, right? Delicate, and the 7%, 8% alcohols that are like make these delicate wines. These light, alcohol, still so complex.
They are. I think like they're delicate if you drink them too quickly. But when you stop and consider it, like these are like every one of these is like just packed with potential. Like there's so much energy and so many layers to them.
Which is why I get frustrated when people say, "Oh, I don't like German Riesling. I don't, it's too sweet." Like, right, sure, we've had 2 sweet wines, but they're balanced and they're off dry at the most. But like, right, we've tasted 3 wines, and sure, I curated them to be distinct, but like these are all 3 are completely different wines, and painting a whole country's wine region with one brush is short-sighted.
Yeah, I think the thing with German Riesling is whether you're in a restaurant or a wine shop, when you get the question from a guest, like, or a customer, is the wine sweet? You want to say like, it's balanced. Like it will have some sweetness, but it also is like so balanced from a beautiful producer, blah, 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 blah. But that's a hard thing. So often I feel like you just say like, no, it's not too sweet.
Okay, wine number 4. Are we ready? When I was opening this and pouching them for everyone, this was the wine that like surprised me the most. So I'm intrigued to taste it 5 days later to see how it's progressed. This is the Peter Lauer 2020 Nuremberg. Kim? I said that wrong. Did I say that wrong? Nuremberg. Sure.
Yeah, perfect.
Number 17. And this is, look, this is Peter Lauer's labels. That's some of the most confusing. There's so much symbolism and so much meaning in these wine labels. This is number 17, Trocken Feinberg from the Saar. There's so much information here. But Kim, tell us about this wine. Why are you excited to drink this? Why is anyone excited to drink this wine?
So this is exciting. This is one of kind of one of the more respected vineyard areas that Lauer is looking after. It's a very small plot within kind of a Grand Cru vineyard in the same way that the Berliner Sonnenrohr was. So we're actually, we're down in the Saar area again with this one. So we've gone back to where we started. And yeah, I think that this is just a really smart style. And I love that he's made the smallest change to his labels this year, because it says number 17, but if you like the last vintage, that was FAS 17. And so even though they are confusing, they've made this like very small step in the direction of trying to clarify it a little bit. And a lot of the wines have those numbers or those FAS numbers, because like the winemaker Florian Lauer is a total nerd. And he has this great concept where he wants to attach each parcel of his land to a specific barrel, because the idea is that barrel is like the right habitat and ferments the same parcel every year. And so the ambient yeast that are part of that barrel or that home ferment that parcel exactly. It's
no, I love it. I love like
that's
how nerdy, like I understand that level of nerdiness. I absolutely do.
I think like everyone that loves wine can appreciate someone just like going so far into it. He considers himself like just, I think he calls himself like a musician, and the sites themselves are the conductors, and he just does his best to follow like what they decide. And so incredibly terroir driven wines, incredibly just trying to show you exactly different parcels. Kieran and I we're lucky enough to go visit him as well, and tasting through all the wines that we tried, they were just incredibly site specific. And we each walked away with like a very different favorite, because they all showed such unique character. And I mean, it's not easy. There's some wineries we visited and we're like, okay, these are, they're good. But you can taste the winemaking, or you can taste, like the hand of somebody involved in them. Whereas these wines, because of all the dryness of a lot of them, and even the sweeter ones, they showed you a place.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea, like thoughts about this wine?
I mean, I have a massive soft spot for these wines, and I try and buy them whenever I can. Like I never want just one bottle. I always want a case. They're just so interesting. I think they're incredibly dry and like incredibly like mean and aggressive wines, but they're so unique that I love them. And I think that they're not really about primary fruit but they're more about like body and power and like dynamic. It's very much like the Heyman Lounstein number 2. Like it's like that same kind of stuff we were talking about, where it's like this is dry and you can taste all the facets of Riesling on these kind of sites that are basically like these kind of like cliff edge like vineyards. It's super slaty and salty. Some of the other thing that Florian was super nerdy about that I thought was really interesting was he had a graph in his like portfolio of like the shutdown window of his GG. So he had it like there's like 2 peaks to this GG and 1 peak to this one. So there's like he has his wines mapped out for like consumers of like when to drink all of them, and they're quite phenomenal. And the other thing that he has that's crazy is sect from like the 80s and early 90s, and then he'll like disgorge them in like
try to hear those. They're wild.
They're very strange.
They're like miso. They're like sparkling miso. It's a kind of like crazy savory and like really, really interesting, but like not expensive and very, very cool. But like totally singular, like totally like no one like a Laura wine. Hopefully it's like you would spot it if you knew what, like, they're very, 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 very intense.
Yeah, those sects, the sparklings are incredible. I'll never forget. Like, I think I sat there with one of them and I was like, sun-dried tomato. Like, this smells like sun-dried tomatoes. Like, yeah, I've never would expect a Riesling-based sparkling wine to be like so like umami and so tomatoey. But there's just so much to them, and because of the age, like, you do get kind of a snapshot of the complexity that we're talking about in these wines.
Delightful. Do we consider Peter Lauer to be kind of like one of the champions, or Florian, to be like one of the champions of this style of dry Rieslings? Is he like the one everyone wants to like? I'm just curious.
I would say probably.
I think he's one of them, but he does make sweet wines as well. So it's not like his portfolio isn't exclusively about the dry. And I think it's because, I don't know, because he likes to just use the spontaneous fermentations. Again, like, he's someone who's not like forcing things to finish or to stop in a certain place during the ferment. But I think he's definitely one of the ones that believes that allowing a fermentation to finish itself naturally gives you the best position, the best flavor, the best complexity out of Riesling.
Interesting. Another question for the team. Do we think dry Riesling, like this style becoming sort of more prominent, do we think it's a like a reaction towards like having less sugar in our diets, in like more in a modern sort of in a more Western sort of perspective to say, or European perspective to say, people aren't looking for sweet wines anymore. We're going to make more drier wines to like make sure that they buy it? Or do you think this is not as reactionary as this? I'm just curious.
I think that the worst wines are a reaction to the market trends. I think there are definitely winemakers that are trying to capitalize on that. And you can taste, when you taste the wines, you can tell that they're unbalanced and that someone should have left some sugar in them. Because ultimately, like, a well-made Riesling has that balance, regardless of if it's sweet or dry, like, it still needs to be balanced. And you can have, wines that are too sweet and are unbalanced that way, and wines that are too dry. They're just as likely. So I think that people who are doing that for the market are sacrificing the wholeness of the wine to do so in some cases.
Well, this is a delightful treat. Kieran, what do you got?
Well, like the German wine law, like nowadays, is they're trying to align it more with the Burgundy model, where there's like the grosser lager and is labeled on the vineyard, essentially, as on the label, and those wines have to be dry, which is interesting, because it's like they're basically saying like their best sites, the winemakers that have vineyards there will make wines that are dry. We want dry wines to be our best sites. So it kind of like puts the emphasis on making dry wines for like Germany to be kind of like brought into this new era, which puts off dry wines, my team's wines, to the wayside, right? Which is so interesting, like, to do that.
Yeah,
because you wonder whether sweet Riesling was just a market trend 100 years ago, that people used to drink dry wines, and then they decided that now, once they understood how to hold fermentation and stop it, they started making sweet wines, and this is just big turning of the wheel. I don't know. Kim, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I think I forget what I was going to say, but I think it's a mistake to think that the dry wines are always going to be better than the sweet wines, even though I know I'm kind of arguing for that, just because it is really site specific and because you can't ignore the history. But I think the wine laws are reflecting climate change. And really just forcing us to acknowledge that, where a lot of wines needed to have that residual sugar because the grapes just didn't get ripe enough, and they still needed to make wine and sell a product so that they could survive, because these are farmers, right? And if you can't sell your crop because it's undrinkably acidic, then you're screwed, you go out of business. And so the style evolved a lot because it was necessary. And now that it's less necessary in some places, people are getting more and more creative. But I like people that are going even a little further than just making a GG. Like, I love Paula Ruprecht, who left the VDP so that they could make like multiple dry expressions of each of their vineyards that are like harvested at different ripeness levels, like using the Spätlese, Auslese, but fermenting everything dry. So you get like incredible depth and incredible complexity out of each of these sites.
So yeah, so Kim, Simon in the chat just asked, like, what's the difference between a GG and a GL wine? And I think you basically just answered it, but like you can only make one dry wine from a GG. So if you want to make multiple dry wines, you have to, you know, call them GL.
Yeah, so GG like is Große Gewächs, GL is Große Lage, and so GGs are all made from GLs, but you can only have like one specific dry wine called a GG, and they can make dry GLs by using different parts of the vineyard. So the Neuenberg that we have here is like a very small part of a Grand Cru vineyard called Coupe. And so they can bottle them separately because they've separated their parcels and they're only declaring one of them GG.
Mm-hmm. It is that confusing, but that's okay.
It is okay.
Because then they have GG red wines, and then you're like, well,
What the heck?
was there sweet?
Yeah, where's the GL reds? Yeah,
exactly. But needless to say, there's no easy way to understand these things. You kind of like have to, you know, just get explained it. You just have to know what to do. But like, I don't think understanding GL, GG, unless you're like studying wine, is going to be a barrier towards drinking delightful, delicious wine. It's from Germany. I think VDP, which is what Kim mentioned before, which is this little symbol. It's an organization. It's this little right here. It's this little symbol that it's the eagle with the little grape circles. It's kind of an organization of wine growers within Germany who are like dedicated to quality and like a set of principles. And it, you know, I think is I don't know. Is everyone in it? I don't know. Yeah, see, Prun's got one. So it doesn't matter about sweetness or dryness. The VDP is definitely an indicator of quality, an indicator of like they're committed to like making wines under certain principles. There you go, Heyman Lowenstein, VDP. My camera won't focus. Question: are we having the fourth VDP? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think they are not into the Pictet system.
No, but I don't know. Krista, this is where the conversation falls onto you. Do you have any questions for the team leaders as to your feelings, thoughts, and concerns?
Team leaders, what an incredible tasting. Do you have any things that you would like to wrap this up with? Honestly, like I see you both, you know, talking about both the sweet and the off-dry and the dry wines, but obviously we're all adults and can hold many truths at the same time. And all of these wines are delicious and have something to say. Thank you for being cool adults and not just arguing for your side. But yeah, what do you think? How would you wrap this up?
Okay. I would go on, Kim.
Yeah, I would say that this is one of those debates that really comes down to personal taste. Everyone's tasting of a wine is valid. And when you taste a wine and you like it or you don't, that is more important than when anyone tells you to like. And so I really appreciate that these two styles of wine represent wines that you would drink in different places at different times. And one of those might appeal to you more. And I think the only way to really know that is to give them both a shot, be open to both of them, and to decide for yourself without the pressure of the world telling you what to enjoy, just what do you actually like.
I agree. And I think we're at a point now where you can't, I think it was very easy to paint German Riesling with one brush to say everything was sweet. And I think the advent and the sort of increase in wines coming out, Rieslings coming out of Germany that are dry, are creating a point of contrast. And I think it may allow us to like appreciate both styles better when there's something to contrast them with. And I also think that sugar or sugar levels is a really nice, or sweetness is a much easier contrast to understand than like barrel aging or not, or I don't know, whole cluster or not in Pinot Noir, or, you know, long maceration times in Barolo. Like, this is something that, like, you know, you can be a nerd about and like also enjoy. I think there's fun in this. And Kira, what were your thoughts?
I think the Ontario like consumers are kind of forced into this like caring about residual sugar because of the way the LCBO like has branded every wine. And I was looking at the LCBO website about like, and there's like article of January was where to shop to avoid sugar in your wines, and it was like a whole bunch of like low sugar wines. And I really hate that conversation and just like where it's headed, because, you know, you see people crushing pitchers of margaritas and ordering old fashions left, right, and center, and the key ingredients are sugar. It's like when you make an old fashioned and the sugar doesn't melt, it's like really not that nice, like unless you really like bourbon. But it's like the sugar is kind of like the best part when it is in there. And so yeah, I kind of feel like that is one thing. And the second thing is, it's like I love the food and the wine together. Like, and I feel like I tried to do an Austrian dinner recently to like showcase.
You did do an Austrian dinner. It was wonderful.
Yeah, to showcase like, and Pompette is like this amazing French restaurant, but she just did this like Bavarian kind of Austrian themed menu, and it was, you know, like lots of vegetables and like lots of like crunchy kind of raw things and like salads, and then there's like a big fatty pork plate and mushrooms and cream and stuff, and you're just like so into it with all the different like this Heyman Laurenstein and like this Laura up against like these kind of fatty dishes, and then these sweet wines up against like salads and like pickle plates and things. And you just imagine that's where Riesling, like for a consumer, like comes to life. So yeah, despite all this like confusing terminology and this kind of like sweetness indicates a sort of fallibility with your taste buds. If you like sweet things, you're like not a proper wine drinker. It's like, actually, no, this is where like these kind of wines and the food together like come to life. So yeah, it's I hope people like buy more and drink more and like try more. And you know, I'm kind of all for both sides. Just off dry is just a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm curious before we like decide, like, what was everyone's favorite wine? In the chat, please shout out what your favorite wine was. I'm going to say wine number 4 was the one that kind of, the Peter Lauer is the one that I kind of enjoyed a lot. And again, for different, like I said, wine number 3, I'll drink it every day of my life for the rest of my life. It's an almost like perfect expression of Valentine Sonnenher. But the Peter Lauer wine has so much going on, and I'm so excited to like pull it apart. And every taste, I get something different. Every smell, I'm tasting something else, and it's, as much as it's not my style, it is a truly captivating one.
Well, you know, thank God we're not on a desert island where we can only drink one of these wines for the rest of our lives.
What if there was just a tap that just Cabernet Prune, just like it's just endless supply of Valentine Sonnenher, just like I mean, I'd live in that. I'd live in that world. Chris, did you have any like favorites or anything that jumped out of you in terms of the wines that we tasted?
Yeah, I mean, the Peter Lauer is just a thrilling wine, like not even just for, you know, an example of Riesling, just as an example of a really beautiful, like balanced and like interesting wine. I would joyfully spend all my money on this beautiful and expensive Riesling. Yeah, but I think all of them are really good examples of the diversity of Riesling in Germany. And obviously, like, Germany loves the law, and it's so confusing. The labels are just outrageous, even if you do speak German. So yeah, there's a lot of difficulty in navigating German wines, but so much, so many thrills to be had. But
for a wine tasting that was 4 of the exact same grapes from essentially a very small part of the world, the same small part of the world, we've had a very, very wide discussion and had very different experiences. Kim, what was wine that you really like fell in love with tonight, or like really enjoyed drinking tonight? I'm curious.
I think number 4 for me, the Lauer as well, because it captured the delicate character of the Mosel, but it still had like the leaning towards dryness, which is like my preference. But Falkenstein steals my heart every time as well. And I'm so happy that we started there with wine 1, because for me, those wines are just drinking joy. So it's nice that we had them kind of together and that they could all show pretty well tonight, really well.
Yeah, we have some magnums of this, and over Christmas I sold a bunch of them, and I've got like a few left. But like, I could just like picture these people going to their like Christmas dinner with a magnum of like this beautiful Riesling, and I'm like, you're gonna have so much fun. You're gonna be with a group of people, and they're gonna say, "Oh, I don't really like Riesling. I don't like sweet wines," and they're gonna drink it, and they're gonna go, "Wow, this is really good," because that's the key with sweet off dry Riesling is like it's best just not to tell anyone.
We've been taught to say that we don't like sweet wine, and it's a bit of a snooty like wine privileged like white person thing to be like, I only drink like dry fine wines, that I think we need to get over and like embrace the delicacy of something that is so like sweet but also delicious and
feminine. But like that's kind of where it used to live, in that world, like, you know. And don't say that didn't matter. People probably made choices because they thought sweet wines were for women, and you know, and dry like red wines were for men. Like it's all nonsense, obviously, but that is the baggage that sort of sweet wines, especially Riesling, have. Hero, what are your feelings? What was your favorite wine you drank?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm sorry. What were you most surprised about? Not even what was the best. What were you surprised about? What were you happy? What were you delighted to drink? What were you pleasantly surprised to go, oh, I forgot how much I love this wine?
I'm really glad that my portion of the JJ Prune number 3 like turned around, because it first smelled like a little gassy and funky, and now it's kind of smelling like beautiful fruit. Maybe that's because like I've had like the Lauer and the Hayman. I've gone back. I don't know. It's just kind of like maybe me been like super sick, but number 1 is so good. Like there's so much joy in number 1. Number 2 was so interesting, how it was like so like bitter and like straight down the back of the palate, that you kind of think about food and you're like, yes. Like someone wrote bubble bath for number 1 and like pork plate or greasy sausage for number 2. And Prune like is so complete, and there's like that honeyed fruit that you just kind of can't beat. I love that delicate. Number 3, and then number 4 is just really, really singular, and I've never tasted really anything like it since tasting these Lauer wines before. These kind of stony, powerful, dry styles of Isla, southern Mosel, or like, yeah. So I kind of can't say, but probably have to go JJ Prune if I want to keep my job.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Especially if Taylor's watching.
Yeah, it's probably true. Okay, I'm going to make a decision for myself. I'm going to go with dry Riesling tonight. I know I'm just more captivated, and I really like it's inspired me to taste more and drink more, even though I know I'm not going to enjoy them as much. I'm not saying I'm going to enjoy them more. I will always enjoy sweet Riesling, off-dry Riesling, 112%. But in terms of, you know, a journey of self-exploration, I think I'm going to award tonight for me to the Lauer. I mean, I still can't understand that one, and I really want to. And I think when we talk about like where Riesling's going to go, like drier styles are defining the evolution of Riesling, not off-dry styles. And so, you know, I'm curious as to see. That's my goal. My job and my profession is to know to follow this along for the next, you know, how many years I have left in this industry, 2 or 3. So, you know, getting old. Krista, what do you feel? What's your opinion?
I mean, what I really want to say is it's a tie and everybody wins and all the wines are delicious because that's true and they are.
Yeah.
But my heart also says Team Dry Riesling. Just because, for a few reasons, that Nick said, but also including the way that they're farmed with fewer additions.
I'm kidding. I'll say.
Kieran, I love that.
I love you. Of like fewer additions and really trying to just like be more intuitive with what like the grape and the plant and the region are expressing. Terroir has some real bullshit associated with it, but it is, it is very evident that these winemakers are really trying to make it hungry. They're all delicious.
I had fun though. I don't know. Did everyone have fun?
But I will, like,
God.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
I'm gonna order some of that Hufflepuff Klopfenstein because it's delicious. And JJ Prim, like, I will drink it literally any
Any
someone
day.
tries it for me.
Those wines are incredible. Yeah.
They're liquid gold. They're like pure. It's one of the examples of a perfect wine. Like, I don't understand. Like, we talk about perfect, not perfect, but we talk about like the top of the class Burgundy, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir. And like when we talk about obviously there are some Riesling can also go into sort of those like really expensive pipes, but spend $120 on a bottle of Spatlese from Valena. I mean, and even Peter Lauer, spend $120 on the Peter Lauer, like a GG, and like you're getting unimaginably delightful wine and some of the best wine in the world, like hands down, some of the best wine in the world. Which I think is something that's I think we should all commend them for, because there's a lot of winemakers out there and there's a lot of people fighting against German wine and saying it's disgusting and writing articles saying drink wine should have no sugar in it, and that's not a hard world to live, like that's not an easy world to live in. So Kim, Kieran, thank you for being the devil's advocates in this conversation. I hope you had fun. Did you have fun? Did you like the wine?
Happy to be runner-up. Happy to be runner-up.
You what? No, you didn't win last. Did you win last? Did you the wine quiz? No, I think Krista won.
I won.
Yeah. Krista's still bitter.
Out of my fate tonight. Yeah, I see you.
Kieran, Kim, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, when I want to talk about German Riesling, I always think of you two are the top of my list in terms of the people who've inspired me and taught me and keep me honest. And I'm just so happy that we can do these things. Like we can talk about Riesling and there are people who want to listen to us, because for a long time you often feel like you're just talking to a wall. Like there's no one cares about Riesling. And Krista, obviously, thank you. You're my you're my rock. You keep me honest and you keep me calm. I always enjoy your opinions. So thanks for hanging out.
It's a nice wine.
Yeah, no, really good.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, everyone have a lovely evening. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Next week we've got Santa Barbara versus Victoria, not Ireland, Australia, but another Pinot and Chardonnay, but like, I'm not mad at that either. I'm super excited. And we've got Sam and Emily, two of our friends and contemporaries, beaming in from Nova Scotia to be my judge, to be the judge of this competition. I'm actually very curious as to see where these wines land. And then Megan Ridgway is going to be fighting for Santa Barbara, and Doug Cooper is going to be fighting for Victoria, Australia. So we'll see how this plays out. Obviously, again, very biased as an Australian, but we'll see how that goes. Kieran, there you go. If you want to reach out to Kieran, reach out. But it should be fun, and we've got lots of things planned in February. And Krista's got lots of things planned. She has some cool, she's got some cool side projects going on, you know, Great Witches, you know,
No.
that kind of vibe. And, you know, we're all busy, but we like approach any of us on Instagram, anything. If you have any questions about wine, that's literally what we love doing. We love talking to people about wine. We don't, I mean, drinking it is also fun, but like the one thing we all share is that we just want to make wine easier and fun and accessible and do away with all that bullshit. But have a lovely night. I'll see everyone soon. Bye, 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 bye. Be safe.